It's Monday, and it's the beginning of a week of passion for Jesus. And it begins with a triumphal entry into Jerusalem, but not in the way that the people that are around would understand. See, a Roman triumphal entry would look totally different. It would be one with pomp and circumstance, one of victory over enemies, one with a lot of fanfare and elevating of the victor. Jesus comes in triumphant, but on the back of a donkey with some garments and some leaves laid down in front of him. And he allows it because he needs the Jewish leaders to know what's about to happen. He needs them to understand that he is coming in as a victor, but it's not over enemies of the earth, but over the enemy. It's a foreshadowing of what's to come. Jesus comes into Jerusalem with his disciples and he goes straight to the temple. He goes straight to the temple to find out whether the house is in order. He'd been there before. He had set it in order before, letting people know, hey, my Father's house is a house of prayer. He sets it right and leaves. And as he comes back, he finds that it didn't stick. It didn't stay clean. It didn't stay focused on the main things. As we get into the scriptures, I want us to consider how our lives can get scattered, both outwardly and inwardly. We're going to read about a fig tree, and we're going to read about the temple, and we're going to gain a little insight into what we can do this week to enter into this same place. Mark chapter 11, verse 12 starts this way. On the following day, when they came from Bethany, he was hungry, and seeing in a distance fig tree and leaf, he went to see if there was any fruit on it. When he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. And he said, may no one ever eat fruit from you again. And his disciples heard it. See, it wasn't really about the figs. It was about a lesson in failure. The nation of Israel had failed to produce fruit in their relationship with God. They only had leaves. It looked like a fig tree, but it wasn't doing what a fig tree is supposed to do. Later on in verse 20, they passed by it the next morning and they saw the fig tree withered away all the way to its roots. And Peter remembered and said, Rabbi, look, the fig tree you cursed has withered. And then Jesus teaches them a second lesson with this fig tree, not on failure, but one of faith. And he talks about how if you say to this mountain, because you have faith in God, be taken up and thrown into the sea, and doesn't doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. And it says, and whenever you stand praying, forgive if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father who is also in heaven may forgive you your trespass. See, it wasn't just about failure. Jesus was helping them understand that a life with God, a fruitful life with God, isn't just an outward understanding of holiness, but it had to be done in faith and in action. And it requires forgiveness and it requires love for others. In the middle here, we find another opportunity. We find Jesus setting his Father's house in order again. Verse 15 says, and they came up to Jerusalem, and he entered the temple, began to drive out those who sold and those who bought in the temple, and he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. And he would not allow anyone to carry anything through the temple. And he was teaching them and saying, is it not written, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations? But you've made it a den of robbers. And the chief priests and scribes heard it and were seeking a way to destroy him, for they feared him, because all the crowd was astonished at his teaching. And when evening came, they went out of the city. Jesus taught as he went through the temple. On this day, he helped the nation of Israel understand their failure. He taught his disciples about faith. And he helped people understand that it's not just about inward or outward cleanliness, but inward devotion. So this week, as we celebrate the passion of the Christ, as we seek to understand how our lives can become so cluttered, we can be outwardly fruitless and inwardly corrupt, just like the nation of Israel, just like those chief priests. So what we have to do is look at our outside. Does it reflect an inward devotion to God of prayer, of meditation, of understanding, of connection with our Heavenly Father. What you're going to do today is this. Spend some time praying, assessing your outward life. Do you see the fruit of a life with God? And turn inward and ask yourself, God, where do I need to change so that I can live a life that is devoted to you in prayer and devoted to others in loving action? Enjoy this week. Pursue Him as you meditate on these scriptures.